Portions of this show are recorded. Strap in and be prepared.
You just heard Baby J about 3 minutes give his entire A to Z on what was going on. I didn't interrupt you.
I don't even like I got to everything, honestly.
No, you didn't get to everything.
Interesting guests.
Kelly Graves, Mike Parker, Josh Pate, Melissa Lombardi, Yogi Roth, who said that Justin and I are smart.
Sharp opinions.
I think Dan Lanning sitting in his office going, you know what, fine, give us the toughest road to win the national championship. That's what it should be.
I think that this team is going to go as far as Malik Murphy takes them. There's a lot to like about this offense if he's who we think he could be.
And some smiles.
Is this thing on?
Is this thing working? No, that's why you got to do this. You got to go.
Hello?
Hello? Testing, testing,
it's like the little
testing.
girl in Nemo where she's tapping on the glass.
Fishy! Fishy, wake up, Fishy!
It's Danny Havel.
We have to be more specific. We have a lot of pickle things going on, apparently.
Justin Grossweiner.
I've been wrong before, but that's what I think.
Danny and Justin starts now on Fox Sports Eugene and Newport. Danny's taking a day off for load management. Here's Justin.
Hello, neighbors. Hi, atop the Delta Triad in the Crystal Palace that is the Bigfoot Beverages Studios. It's the Danny and Justin radio program here on a weekend eve, and we've got a great show for you today. You hear our station manager, Woody, who, by the way, Woody.
I still think you ought to do the Mr. Rogers intro instead of the same one that Danny does.
Well, it was upon request. Request.
Hello, neighbor. We're going to talk some sports today.
We certainly are, and we got a little bit of a dilemma today because we're going to bring on the coach,
yes,
Ken Woody.
Yes.
So I'm glad that Steve's not here in a way because I don't know what I would call you then. I couldn't call you Steve. I couldn't call you Woody.
Yeah, no.
What do I do at that point?
I'm Woody. He's just coach.
He's going to be coach today.
And Steve is Goose.
And Steve is Goose. That's right. So
See,
we've got the monikers.
You've got it covered. You know, either or you can call me Viper, whichever one.
Viper?
That was the nickname that Danny gave me when we were early on.
Did he?
Yeah.
I don't remember this. Where did that come from?
That's from Top Gun. That was the Admiral.
Oh, see, this is where I just...
Because you're not old enough. That's
I'm not,
okay.
You know, it's funny,
and
though.
you have a lot of movies to watch.
Well, it's funny because my mom's a film professor, and so she did a lot of silent films from, like, the earliest days of filmmaking. So I'm way more familiar with those films than I am some of the films in, like, the 70s, the 80s. Horror films, sci-fi films, I'm all over that.
And you tell me you still haven't seen Major League?
I still have not seen Major League. That is correct. I know. It's sacrilegious.
You're making me reconsider my hiring practices
I'm
here.
making you look bad here.
Yeah, not good.
That's being said, we got a good show for you today. Going to have the coach Ken Woody on here with us, and he's going to talk about Oregon's performance against Penn State. We might ask him a little bit about Indiana. That's a top 10 matchup coming up for Oregon next week. But first of all, did you see this Chad Powers series come out a couple days ago? And it had Oregon in it. You didn't see this?
No, I did not see this.
So this is a Glenn Powell Hulu series, which...
Oh, I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I've heard about it. It's a series based on a guy who played for Oregon.
For Oregon, yeah.
And now he's like doing a Tootsie.
It's a Mrs. Doubtfire.
Mrs.
Almost.
Doubtfire.
Right.
Okay.
And so he's going to go play, I think it was West Virginia. I haven't actually seen it, but for the Oregon fans out there, you can watch Glenn Powell be an Oregon Duck, and let me tell you, does not look like he's college age.
Well, it's like 90210. It's an old show from the 90s where you had a bunch of kids that were in their 30s trying to pass off as high schoolers. So.
Well, it sounds like me right now. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's funny, too, because they start off the series, and I don't know much about it, so I can't give anything away.
Don't do spoilers. You're going to make a lot of people mad if they want to watch it.
Can I talk about the premise of it?
You can talk about the premise, but don't give away any.
So, from what I understand, the first scene, or one of the first scenes, is basically the national championship game with Oregon and Georgia. And let me tell you, it doesn't go so well for Oregon in that one. So Oregon fans may or may not want to watch it.
They're just pulling from real life
events.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I thought that was interesting that came out. I definitely have to look a little bit more into it before I really give any opinions on it. But I thought it was interesting. I think it's interesting as well that they obviously used Oregon as this program of like, okay, well, who's going to be in the national championship game? Georgia. Okay, that makes sense. Oregon. I mean, Oregon hasn't been in a national championship game since 2015. But certainly, I think especially now, this was way before the Penn State game when this was produced, obviously. But I think there's now a perception, clearly, that Oregon is a championship-level program, despite the fact that they've never won a championship.
I agree.
So check that out on Hulu, I believe.
Hulu, okay.
Just looking at some of the MLB scores going on right now, my beloved Cubs are starting in about 8 minutes, so we're going to avoid talking about that altogether. I know we avoid talking about Cubs and Packers, but I will keep. I'm not going to keep an eye on it, but I'll keep like a quarter of an eye on it. I'll be checking it occasionally.
Because if you start talking Cubs, I'm going to start talking Dodgers, and I'm going to talk about the bullpen and how they almost blew another one.
Well, right now, what's going on, the Tigers are currently leading the Guardians 2-1. It is in the top of the 7th inning. A threat right now for the Tigers as they have Gleyber Torres up, 1st and 3rd, nobody out. So that's been a great series. 3 really good series, I would say, so far. You mentioned your Dodgers. Looked really, really good last night against the Reds.
Except for the bullpen, yes.
Except for the bullpen, but they've got an unbelievable starting rotation, and they're the first team that has advanced through the wild card round. They are now set to play the Philadelphia Phillies. So how you feeling? You're a pessimist Dodgers fan.
Well, that's because I've lived, until recently, I've lived through a lot of disappointment as a Dodger fan. I'm so concerned. I feel that bullpen is such a detriment to the team that I don't feel safe in any game.
Okay.
I really don't feel it. I don't feel safe in any game. It's that bad. If you take the losses that they've had, I think they've had like 26 blown saves.
Really? Wow.
This year in the regular season, 26. So you take a half of those, with a decent bullpen, just an average bullpen, and you're 105 regular season wins, and I'd feel a heck of a lot better going into the playoffs. But it is so bad that I don't feel safe in any single game for the Dodgers.
And in all fairness to the team, there's been a ton of injuries, especially on the pitching side.
Absolutely.
So they're kind of grasping at some straws in some places. But, as somebody that is in the outside looking in, the Dodgers are one of those teams that, like, as a Cubs fan, do not want to face the Dodgers. That is the last team that I think that any team would want to face right now, just because of the level of talent they have.
Again, like I said, if I could trust their bullpen right now, I'd agree with you, but I just can't. I mean, it looked like they had a 7-2 lead or something like that.
Yeah.
And you had bases loaded.
Right, they got scared.
And it's happening every single game.
There was
now they got out of it this time,
but
I just don't trust them.
Right. Well, and Dave Roberts didn't trust his pitchers even up on a 1-2 count. He took out one of his guys yesterday when, again, 1-2 count. And then, so what happened was Dave Roberts put in a new reliever. Right. The Reds put in a new hitter. And so he struck him out. And the strikeout was actually given to the previous batter.
Correct, because he had the majority of the pitches.
Right, exactly, which I love baseball. And I love these little intricacies with the rules. I've never heard of it. If you would have asked me, what happened?
That's a common.
No, I mean,
it's not, because you can't start a guy over when you switch him out.
Right, exactly.
That's not fair.
It would kind of make sense to me if you said, well, the guy that came in that actually got the last swing and miss or took the last third strike, he would get the actual
but because
credit
the majority
for it,
of the count was applied to the previous hitter. That's why.
So we're getting to the point of the year. We're about a month away from my favorite time of the year, when we have all 3 of the major sports going on: basketball, baseball, football, college football. My opinion,
college basketball
college
and NBA basketball as well.
Exactly, and that's the reason I wanted to bring that up, is because we had some Oregon news.
This is a pretty big one.
I think it is.
I was really surprised to hear this. I've heard, so for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, Oregon has added a member to the roster. His name is Wei Lin, and he has played in the China Basketball Association for the last 3 years. He's actually the first Chinese professional player to sign on at a college. He was drafted in the G League, but didn't sign. And from what I've heard from contacts that I have on campus, he's been around since September on campus. And they were just waiting to get some things cleared off with the NCAA as far as his eligibility is concerned. And they just announced last night that those hurdles have been cleared, and he is now a member of the basketball team. And you're going to see this a lot more. You see this already with European players. I'll use Wayne Tinkle as an example up in Corvallis. Last year's Beaver basketball team and the year before had a lot of really good international players on it. And part of that's because of NIL. You can go to a guy like Wei Lin and say, hey, you're making X amount of dollars playing in China, why don't you play in the U.S. against college competition, help develop your skills even more, and possibly get you ready for an NBA shot?
Right. No, and I think it's really, really interesting. So he averaged over in China for the Nanjing Monkey Kings 21 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists last season. He's done it over the last few seasons, though, Woody.
Yeah.
20 points, 4 assists last year, 1.5 steals a game. And he also, in 2022, averaged about 15 points. So he's slowly been getting better. This is a professional league, playing players like Taco Fall, TJ Leaf. So not necessarily like the best of the best, but certainly players that
borderline NBA players.
Exactly. And not immediately clear how many years of eligibility he'll have. He is listed as a sophomore on the Go Ducks website. I think I'd take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't think if he develops like people hope he does, he probably wouldn't be around for longer than a couple of seasons anyway.
Exactly. And it's a guy that I think certainly changes the dynamic of this team, and I think for sure makes them better, because you already had a team that was bringing back most of the main pieces, if not basically all of them, and had some additions to the transfer portal already. A couple guys from Turkey that were going to come over and be big players for them. The other international guys, Ige Demir and F.A. Vatan. So this is a roster that I think now, if you look at it, you can say, wow, they're basically what they were last year, but better.
I think the depth is definitely better. And having guys, look, anytime that you have guys that stick around together in Dana's system, it's nothing but positive. Again, last time we had guys stick around long enough, they were in the Final Four.
Right.
So are we saying that this is going to be a Final Four team right now? We have no clue. It's pure speculation. But when you add pieces like Wei Lin and some of the international players on the front court, it sure makes things look good.
Yeah, and that was the problem last year, that depth behind Nate Biddle has certainly been addressed. And then I think that this Wei Lin piece is really, really interesting, because Jackson Shelstad's a guy that we kind of always compare him to a Peyton Pritchard, but I think Peyton Pritchard's a little bit more of a pure point guard who can score, and he's become more of a scorer. But at Oregon, especially early on with those teams that you just mentioned, he was like that pure, get everybody involved point guard that would score when necessary. Jackson's a little bit more of that pure scorer, I think. Explosive, obviously can hit the ball or hit the off the dribble three-pointers, but I think a guy that can have Jackson off the ball a little bit more could be potentially huge for this team.
They just need help on a wing. That's where in my opinion, where the weakness of the team has been. They've always had good guards. They've, Biddle, when he's healthy, and again, that's the other piece of all of this, is making sure that everybody stays healthy. Because again, on paper, this looks great. This looks fantastic. But let's see where they are come conference play.
Totally agree. And you have a guy, Kwame Evans Jr., that's coming back that took some steps last year on that wing. He really was the X factor, I think, down the stretch for this team. He's going to be at that forward position. Sean Stewart's a guy that they bring in. He was at Ohio State last year. Previously was at Duke. So he's got some talent. Didn't do a lot in his first couple seasons. Only averaged about 6 points a game. But you talk about a head coach that's used to bringing guys in, transfers, and getting the best out of them. Yeah. Seems like it's a good formula.
Dana's a master at that. And you've got such a strong nucleus in the middle with Biddle, Evans, and then Shelstad. You can't go wrong from just a foundational standpoint with those three guys, and they've been in the system long enough now, which there's been so much turnover on Dana's teams, that having these guys that have been in there long enough, they're to the point where they're coaches on the court. Right. Because they can go to these younger guys and go, no, that's not how we do things here. This is how this is how you're expected to play. This is how you're expected to practice. This is how you're expected to perform. And that's going to make the team just that much better.
Does this feel like it's a year where it's just kind of going to be the top of the cycle, if that makes sense, where you're kind of building toward this season, and then we'll see kind of after, we're not sure how about Jackson Shelstad and Nate Biddle, kind of the future of those guys after this season? Like, does this feel like it's kind of their shot for the next couple of years?
I'll put an asterisk with it, if healthy.
Sure. There you go.
And that's been a challenge, is you've got guys that will, go out, especially, right before the season starts or into the early non-conference season, and you won't have them again until January. So if this group can stay together and stay healthy, you've got the makings of a dangerous team.
I am really interested to see where this Oregon basketball team goes, and I'm really excited for the season start. It's right around the corner, and I'm ready for it. So we're going to take an early break here on the Danny and Justin radio program right here on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. On the other side of this break, we're going to talk to the coach, Ken Woody, about Penn State and Oregon. Of course, he does his After Further Review column on the Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport websites. You can check that out on Mondays. So he'll help us break it down for us when we come back after this break, right here on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. Danny and Justin on a Thursday, right here on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. And it's a weekend eve. We've been digesting Oregon's 30-24 victory in double overtime against Penn State in the whiteout all weekend. Joining us on the Oregon Man Clinics hotline to make us a little bit smarter is the coach, Ken Woody. You can read Coach's thoughts after the game on FoxSportsEugene.com and FoxSportsNewport.com on Mondays in his column After Further Review. And he conducts a free coaching clinic at the 6th Street Grill each week to break down the games. Coach, in your latest further review, you referred to the battle that Oregon had on the offensive and defensive lines as the key to the Book of Landing, which I thought was a great reference. And so after watching the film, how impressed were you with the way that Oregon played on the line of scrimmage, both on offense and defense?
The film looked just as good as it did in real time when we saw it. It from start to finish, the level of effort and effectiveness and just guts by both teams deserve high praise for that. But the Ducks in particular, it's the finest Oregon football victory and performance in a game that I've seen in 59 years of being an Oregon fan. So, it's not to say that the Ducks played a blemish-free game. In the fourth quarter, Penn State threw some stuff at them that they weren't prepared for, they hadn't seen, and they had to make some adjustments. And thank goodness they were able to get to overtime and make it so that that wasn't going to be a factor. But it was a phenomenal game. And at our show last night down at the 6th Street Grill, which we have at 5 o'clock on Wednesdays, I invited the crowd and we had a big crowd. I just invited them to watch the shoulder level of the Oregon offense and defensive linemen. And the mantra in football is the low man wins. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the Ducks, when you weigh 320 pounds, it's not easy to be the low man in the third and fourth quarter when you're getting kind of tired. But they did absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it was exhilarating to see the game played the way that it was.
Yeah, it was certainly a great game and a lot to go over. And when I was watching this game, the only thing I could think of was, man, these are two top 5 teams. I'm really impressed with both of them. And it's so funny because the reception after the game has been like, oh, well, Penn State blew it and good job, Oregon. But really, this is about Penn State and how they did. But when you watched this game, did you think that Oregon's victory became because of Oregon playing really well? Or was this Penn State folding a little bit?
Oregon played very well, but Oregon had better guys. Oregon's offensive line is better than Penn State's overall. Defensively, the front seven were magnificent for Oregon, and they're better than Penn State. And down when it really counted, the best guy in the field for Oregon was their quarterback, who was better than the Penn State quarterback. I saw Aller when he was a sophomore, and he got a start against Michigan, and his throws were off center. You're just going, this guy isn't very good at all. Well, he improved. He had a good year last year, except throwing an interception in the last minute that cost him the game against Oregon. And the same thing this year. People who had seen Penn State play in their first 3 or 4 games said that Aller was not what they anticipated him to be. And I've heard several Joel Pate, type personalities on their podcast say, you know what? I think we all overestimated Penn State in the fact that I heard, well, Franklin, the coach, had spent the last 6 years putting together a team that could contend for the national championship. And they can. They're good enough to contend for it. But if it comes down to better guys, Oregon has better guys overall in the key positions than Penn State. They have better receivers. They got more of them. They don't have a Kenyon Sadiq. The running back depth and explosivity for Oregon is above. And Penn State has 2 really good backs, but Oregon happens to have 6 really good backs, maybe 7. So, I think there are a lot of people that are saying and have done so that maybe we overestimated Penn State, and maybe along with that we've underestimated Oregon. Oregon's out west. They don't stay up and watch Oregon play, and when they're doing the night games and all that, they don't. They're just dismissive of Oregon, and they frankly, and I would advise any Oregon fan who can go to GoDucks.com, and you can go to the video page, and they've got Ducks versus them, and what that is, it's a show put together by Oregon after the game is over, and what it shows is Lanning on Monday, the team meeting, what he's talking about, and then they show some highlights of practice, and they're working. They showed how they were working against the sound and so on. It's just, I saw one practice, and the sound was deafening, and I was 100 yards away up in the end zone, and you know what? I was watching the offensive line. They were flawless in practice. They only had one, encroachment, and that was the tight end who kind of flinched a little bit. The man might have had an upset stomach and kind of burped, but it was a very slight movement. But throughout that game, and what Lanning's basic precept to the game was, we are going to take the whiteout out of the game. And as he said, nobody in a whiteout outfit is going to be able to make a tackle, deflect a pass, catch a pass. It's all on you. It is you. And the reason they are in white is because of you, because of how great you guys are. That is why they are in white. So they were practicing, dealing with the sound all week. And it's interesting. He had the teams learning to breathe, and we all breathe, but to take a deep breath and blow it out, he had them doing that during practice, during the game. The coaches were doing it, and they were doing it to each other. Lanning did it in a staff meeting. He said, "Hey, everybody, take a breath." And they, 15 guys or however many coaches there are right now, they all take a big deep breath and blow it out. And that's what they were doing on the sidelines. And that's this Ducks versus them. You get a chance to see their preparation, how they ingrain whatever the mantra is going to be that week. And then you see it play out. And it's just phenomenal. Lanning does not cease to amaze me. I think he's just unbelievably intense, but he's precise, he's smart, and he loves his kids. They know he loves them. As a result, they're very open to what he says, and he allows them to be involved in the whole process too. It's not just this top-down, hey, boys, this is the way it is.
Coach,
kind of thing.
You've seen both of these teams play each other now twice, high-level, high-pressure situations. Okay, last year at the Big Ten championship game, this year at the whiteout. What is the difference that you have seen in this year's team with the loss of so much senior leadership from the year before that makes it even better than last year?
It's he's got a couple of one-year. Thieneman is one. The tight end from Louisville is another. There's several. I don't have my research with me right now, but they've got kids that were on another team last year who have come over into this culture. They've accumulated that, they've assimilated that, and they are now helping to lead the culture. It's not like the guys that who were there when they came in the fall, were the only guys that were going to be leaders. Everyone was open to everyone being a leader, and that it comes that way. So I'll tell you what, they didn't have a safety like Thieneman since Brady Breeze and Javon Holland left. That's been a weakness of Oregon's defense. I said at the end of last year, and I said at the beginning of this year, Oregon has to play better defense to be a contender. And now, the interior four guys, the two edges, and then Amari Washington and Alexander, those guys, and Betcher, that's five guys there. They had 31 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I mean, just that group. And they're better than what they had last year in that area. That's where the biggest change has come. I think the offensive line is rapidly, their pass protection techniques and so on are awesome. They are great. I would say they were lucky to beat Penn State last year. They were better in the terms of getting a lead on them, as they did this year, with some outstanding plays. But in the end, I could say that the coach is a big difference. Lanning, when he decided to go for it on fourth down, their first drive on their own 32-yard line, I go, oh no. Visions of the Husky game came back to me and just, oh no. But I was watching his face. They had a camera down on him when he was talking to the other coach or the quarterback. I can't remember exactly the deal, but I could see it on his face that this was not a decision he just made on the sideline. He made that on Monday or Tuesday. And what he said later, the reason why they went for it on fourth down is he said, if we had to punt, they might get the ball and have it for 6 minutes. We could not afford to do that. Now that's some pretty far, that's some far out thinking that is, he sure has me convinced. And I'm the one who said he needs to be a little more careful but he was being careful, and he was being, he was sure of what he had to deal with. And so he went for it. And, I think that was a key to the victory. Now, Franklin, the Penn State coach, hey, he's a good man and a good coach, and they have a good team. But Oregon has a better front seven on defense. They've got more skilled guys that can make things happen. And most important of all, two things. One, they got the best coach, but they also have the best quarterback. Moore was just unbelievable. As he was running around, you see him, he's avoiding guys without it looking at them. He can feel them or smell them or whatever, but he's looking downfield. He keeps his eyes for his receivers. And, several of his key plays were ones that he had to do some improvising. And his footwork and his manner is just impeccable. He's like James Bond when all the hell would break loose, and he's cool, calm, and then he'd say something that was kind of clever, and you go, God, that guy's cool. So Moore is like the James Bond of football.
You're touching on a lot of things I want to get to, Coach. As the coach, Ken Woody, is with us here on the Oregon Man Clicks Hotline, Danny and Justin on a Thursday. But, watching the film, what kind of things does Dante do that you think fans might miss if they're really not paying attention that makes him so good?
Well, the one thing is, and I kind of zeroed in on this in the game, is I looked for him when he, in particular, when he was scrambling. And I just couldn't believe how calm he was and how he did not let trying to run away from guys that are chasing him to subverting him looking downfield for his receiver and then throwing. He doesn't throw across his body. He gets himself turned so he throws a good, strong pass that is eminently catchable. And, that's the thing. Yogi Roth, who's the guy with the Big Ten, he played at SC and he coached the quarterbacks there 5 years. But when he did his early season, the preseason rounds, and he was talking about quarterbacks, he said that Dante Moore throws the most catchable pass he's ever seen. And if you look at it, there's just a nice touch on it. It reminds me, if you were a golfer and you remember watching Freddie Couples swing, he was so smooth. I mean, that's the way Moore is. And he doesn't, if he's upset or gets riled, you can't tell. He may be above that, but I think he has really matured a lot since he was at UCLA. He was thrown to the Wolves. I don't think he had good coaching down there, and I think that hurt. I think he coming up and being a backup to Gabriel last year was very good for him, and I would highly encourage him when this season's over to consider hanging with it, because I think playing football quarterback at Oregon really prepares a quarterback who's got some ability for the next step up.
And he certainly passed a really big test on Saturday. 110,000 fans or more, and they just didn't seem to make an impact on Oregon, which was so surprising. What did you see in the ability for the Ducks to communicate and to make adjustments to the line of scrimmage despite all that noise?
Well, first of all, they had times during practice where guys had boom boxes with sound coming out of it. Excuse me. And they had a little cluster huddle where everyone's kind of in a small circle and their heads are all towards the middle. They got a boom box right next to Dante Moore while he's calling signals. And you don't see anybody even paying attention to it, to the sound. Mm-hmm. So they were ready for the sound. That wasn't going to be an issue. Besides, Austin is louder. And here's the one thing Oregon fans may miss at times about making noise. Like when the other team has the ball and they're making all that racket, that can be hard on your defense too, because they're trying to communicate. But it's like they've all learned sign language and they're being able to do that. But the communication that Oregon had throughout that game on both offense and defense was definitely a key to their victory. That's the way the coaches prepared them, and that's the way that it went down.
And you mentioned the fourth down calls earlier. 7 fourth down calls for Oregon. They have one of the best offensive coordinators in the nation in Will Stein. I highly doubt he's going to be at Oregon for too much longer, just based on how good Oregon's offense has been over the last few years and how he's been able to do a lot with some of these quarterbacks coming in. But the number on third down wasn't so good. 2 of 10 on third down. How much do you think of that was just the willingness to be aggressive and to be willing to go for it on those fourth downs?
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact is that we're going to run the ball. They did not throw the ball on first down as much as they might normally do, and they could have probably thrown the ball a little bit deeper there. But they were, I wouldn't say they're afraid. They were just being strategically cautious. Now, if you don't get your third downs, look how many times you punted. I think the Ducks only punted twice, so they ended up getting those, 5 of those 3 third downs they didn't get, they got on fourth down. All right, so that the third down diminishes in its overall preeminence.
Sure.
But I wouldn't. That's just a product of being in a tough, hard-nosed game against a good team, and you're playing it. He's playing it safe, but it wasn't cowardly. It was strategic, and worked out great.
And it was really clear, like you said, that they were willing to be aggressive, that they were willing to go for it on some of these fourth downs. And some of them were really critical, including that one in overtime where they were able to keep the game going. What did you see on these fourth downs? Like, what was leading to their ability to have success on these fourth downs?
Well, I'll tell you what, and I neglected to mention this when you asked me about Dante Moore, but Dante Moore, the toughness that he showed when he had to run the ball, and Lanny said after the game, we knew and we planned on our quarterback having to run because we were not good enough to beat Penn with 10 guys, okay? And so when you're handing it off with your quarterback on a third down or fourth down play, the quarterback really isn't, one of the guys impacting the result of the play. However, when he's dropping back and then bolting up the middle, he's playing, man. And so that was Lanning, the way he explained that, it's great. I'll tell you the one thing, it's just sad that more people couldn't hear his interview right after the game. And when he does his thing later and then on Mondays, all of a sudden you're not getting information that's that deep or maybe significant. It was really, really good. And the thing he talked about defensively, he said, we at the fourth quarter they got on us and they got us there. Thieneman was beat deep, stayed in his back pedal too long against a guy who was faster than him. And, it wasn't because there wasn't a good pass rush, because that was the best pass rush I've seen from start to finish ever. So I think knowing that you got a quarterback like, you got to be impressed with him running after that game.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. He put his shoulder down and he weighs 210 pounds or maybe a little more or less. But, the guy's a formidable factor. He's fast, and he can get his inertia to a good degree, get it upfield. And of course, in some of those situations, the offensive line was helping too. They blew Penn State off the line a couple times, and there was. This shows you. You talked about Will Stein. I think he got better. I thought at the end of last year, especially after the Ohio State performance, that he had a long way to go. I didn't think he was very creative. I didn't think they were. They did not adjust to the stuff that Ohio State had against them. And I was very interested in the Penn State game because that defensive coordinator was at Ohio State. Was he going to have Will Stein's number again? Well, if Will Stein had run the same stuff, maybe, but it was different this year. And here's an example. 4th and 1, and the Ducks are in 2 tight ends, and they got a wing, and they're in a kind of the pistol, 1 wide receiver, and Moore fakes the thing to the running back, and everyone blocks, and you're thinking, hey, shit, they're going to run, and all of a sudden he's dropped back, and he throws that one ball to Moore, DeCorian, and first down. Or maybe it was Sadiq, one of those 2 guys, I can't remember, but I just remember that Moore had 8 guys protecting him. And so, cool, they thought it was going to be a run maybe, but what Lanning said is, if we're going to throw it, we're going to not have to worry about checking off or, throwing a little flare pass or whatever. We're going to get our best receiver or one of our best downfield, and we're going to break their back, and which they did. So a lot of things of thinking that went into that game, and I think there obviously always are, but there seemed to be a little higher level of that than what I've observed in the past.
And what's not lost on all of this is Penn State had an extra week to prepare. They had a bye week, and Oregon had a game.
They did, and what prepares you more to work against, who was it? It was Oregon State?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Oregon State did a couple things to the Ducks in the second half that were good lessons for them to learn. That against a good team could have really hurt them. But the Ducks learned from that. So Penn State went a week without learning anything about what they needed to do more than what they learned against beating up the Three Sisters of the Poor coming into the game. The Ducks, Northwestern was good for them because Northwestern was better than a lot of people thought, and they had some muscle, and they knocked the Ducks around a little bit. That was good for them. And what Lanning, although wanting to be victorious, he says he prizes the mistakes or things that happen to his team because it causes them to address those and become an even better team. And that's what we're seeing. And so this whole thing about the bye helps you with your guys that are injured and so on. But I think that it didn't help Penn State.
So I got one more question for you, Coach, before we're going to head to a break, and then I want to break down a little bit of that Penn State game. But I want to ask you about a couple of freshmen before then, because De'Aaron Hill Jr. and DeCorian Moore just seem like they're a little bit higher level than the typical freshman. What do those guys do that you don't typically see freshmen doing?
They move their feet faster.
Is that it? Is that simply it?
That's it, baby.
Well, what do you make about this running back room? Because there's so many guys in that room. Obviously, Mekhi Hughes is going to redshirt. We all expected him to be a big player coming into this season. It turns out that he's basically been their running back like 7 or 8 at this point. But De'Aaron Hill Jr., I mean, you say he moved his feet faster. It certainly looks like he is a guy that just has a little bit extra burst and athleticism than other guys. But just what do you make about this backfield? Certainly a lot of pieces. Jordan Davison was had a huge touchdown on one of those fourth down calls that I think that people had some questions about. That's why Dan Lanning is making the big bucks and not us. But just this running back room in general, like, do you think Hill is actually taking command here, or is it still going to be a big mix of backs like it's been?
It's an interesting question. I think I watched them the backs interact on the sideline and so on, and they root for each other, and no one seems to be hanging their head because they're not running. The only guy that you wonder about is the transfer from Tulane, and he showed up late in the fourth quarter against Oregon State. So, Lanning has said that how you practice depends on how much you're going to play and in what situations. And so it looks to me like, there's a lot of guys working hard in practice, and that's why they're getting better. And I think they understand it's a long season, and I don't need to be All-American on this carry or this. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you here's where you see how good those running backs are. And I was talking to one of the assistant running back coaches downtown a couple of weeks ago, and I said this because of Gary Campbell, who was the running back coach at Oregon for so many years. And I would see Campbell get a freshman, and the first thing you'd see with a freshman running back is when they had to pick up a blitz, a 230-pound linebacker. And you'd see these guys turn their head, and they're not used to blocking. High school, mm-hmm. All they did was run. But I'll tell you what, those guys will lead block. Lemur, I mentioned all of them. I've seen them all. And then the Whittington against
Oklahoma State.
Remember.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State. He fronts a guy up and stops him. He ended up getting bowled over. But those guys are like in World War I when the troops would jump and lay down on the barbed wire so their guys could get over. It's the same kind of thing. And that is where those guys, as freshmen, are different. The receivers, you watch them block, they're physical. They have bought into, we got to block. We want to block. Blocking's important. Blocking is fun. We get, kudos when we block well. And they've done the same thing with the running backs, that if you're going to blitz Oregon, hey, you know what? Don't expect a guy just to lay over and turn his head and, just bump you. Like I've seen, you can see this every Saturday on other teams, with young guys. That's the biggest thing that really outstanding backs in high school need to work on first, and that's the physical part of blocking and basically picking up blitzes. And there's times now where they'll give the ball to one back while the other one is like a fullback in the old I, where they're leading them through the hole. So, that's great coaching, because I used to coach receivers, and they'd come out and, they wanted to stand away from the fray with their hands on their hips and run down and catch a pass, and then jog back and say, "Nice job, fellas." And we say, "No, if you don't block, you're not going to play." And we extolled their toughness. We work to emphasize that. That's what Oregon does with they're doing with the running backs, and this goes to other positions as well. The rest of the team isn't sitting around playing patty cake either.
Hey, Coach, we got to hit the break real quick. You want to stick around for us for the last segment?
Sure.
All right,
let's do it.
Let's do it. We got to go to break. We will be back to wrap up today's Danny and Justin show on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. We're back to the Danny and Justin Show on a Thursday, Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport. I'm Woody in for Danny, and then there's Justin right over there.
Hello, hello.
And we've got on the line, on the Oregon-Penn Clinic's hotline, Coach Ken Woody. Thanks for coming back for another segment, Coach.
My pleasure.
And I think we've got time for one more question for you, Coach. I want to talk about this top 10 matchup against Indiana coming up in about a week. Just how good do you think Indiana is?
Right now, I would say they're very good. I think they're as good as Penn State in a lot of ways, physically, offense and defense, but they got a better quarterback. I think the quarterback at Indiana is operating much better than the one at Penn State. So if the Ducks, I'm sure they're not going to overlook this, but this is definitely a tougher game now than it looked like on August 1st. So I still recall the last time Indiana was at Autzen and they beat the Ducks, and the Ducks just performed poorly. They fumbled the ball, they made mistakes, penalties, and they end up losing like 34-30, something like that. But they were beaten badly. It was ugly. It's ugly, and I want to get that out of my system before I go.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you coming on as always. If you want to hear more of the Coach, you can catch him at the 6th Street Grill on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. That was yesterday. I hope you were there for that one. And always his After Further Review column that you can find on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport websites on Mondays. So, Coach, we always appreciate your time. We'll look forward to having you on again sometime soon.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks. Can I do a quick plug?
Absolutely.
Hey, this next Wednesday at 5 o'clock, there's no game to prepare for or to show because of this weekend, but we're going to have Tim Gleason, who's the former faculty athletic representative, is going to be a guest speaker at 5 o'clock, 6th Street Grill. He's going to be talking about NIL, all things that, and then the direction of which intercollegiate athletics, and football in general are going. So I think it'll be very interesting, still around Duck football and Duck sports. Tim Gleason.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach.
Okay. Go Ducks.
Ken Woody.
There he goes, Ken Woody.
You can read him after further review on the Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport websites.
Yeah, it's always a great read.
Yeah, he does a great job.
So, just got a couple minutes here. Steve, what do you want to talk about?
What do I want to talk about?
Can we do a dad joke?
We've got a really good show tomorrow.
We do have a good show tomorrow.
I mean, Danny's back. You guys have really great guests. You've got Big Bets tomorrow.
We do.
And so if you're going to be a part of Big Bets, make sure you call in early so you can get in during the Big Bet segment.
Yes, remember, it's easy to be
I'm answering the phones, and I ought to know. So you guys want to get on that, you can win prizes.
Yeah, so we're going to have Adam Witten on tomorrow.
Right.
He is the play-by-play voice for the Appalachian State. I'm going to get that right, I swear. Mountaineers. So he's going to be on tomorrow at about 2:20. So looking forward to that. Danny's also going to return tomorrow. So it will be the Danny and Justin show, but I think we have just enough time for a dad joke.
Oh, a joke. You're doing this one.
I'm doing it.
Fired from the bank today. A woman asked me to check her balance, so I pushed her.
Dad jokes.
Now, this isn't the best one, but I think that it's a solid, simple dad joke. So why did the coach go to the bank? To get his quarterback. Oh, I know. It's so good.
Are you even old enough to be telling dad jokes?
No. Well, depends. That's up to the eye of the beholder, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, fun show today. Big thank you once again to the coach, Ken Woody, for joining us here on the Danny and Justin show on Fox Sports Eugene and Fox Sports Newport.
And you guys have some fun tomorrow.
Yeah,
Thanks
we're going
for
to have
having
fun
me on.
tomorrow. Yeah, thanks again to you for joining us. It's always fun that people can hear our conversations that we have on the air that we usually have off the air. So put a smile on your faces and somebody else's face. They deserve it, and so do you. We'll be back after 23 hours. Danny's to be with here for us. Peace.